everyone, my name is Emily Cato, and during this presentation, I'm going to be discussing the relationship between Prader-Willi syndrome and obesity. Most people have never heard of Prader-Willi syndrome, also known as PWS. PWS is a rare genetic condition that sees less than 20,000 new cases per year. The disorder is the result of an error in one or more genes on chromosome 15, and in the vast majority of cases, PWS isn't inherited. It's actually the result of random genetic error. This genetic defect disrupts the functionality of the hypothalamus, which controls the release of hormones in your brain. This results in issues with hunger, growth, sexual development, body temperature, mood, and sleep. The symptoms associated with Prader-Willi are strong predisposing factors for obesity. PWS occurs only in about 1 in 15,000 births worldwide. But this population is unique in that the individuals diagnosed only really have one identifiable commonality, that they actually have PWS. Social determinants, environmental factors, or even the genetics of the parent don't make someone more or less likely to be born with PWS because the disorder is a result of a random genetic deletion. This population is extremely vulnerable to obesity because of predisposing physical symptoms, enabling risk factors such as intellectual disability, and unique needs compared to the unaffected population. During the remainder of the video, I'm going to discuss some of the specific challenges that this population faces in general, but especially in regards to preventing obesity. Symptoms of PWS present as early as from birth. Infants have hypotonia, which is poor muscle tone, and this can result in a very poor suckling reflex. Almond-shaped eyes, a narrowing of the head at the temples, a turned-down mouth, and a thin upper lip are all characteristic of individuals with Prader-Willi as well. Babies will typically also have generally poor responsiveness. This translates to poor response to stimulation, difficulty waking up, a weakened cry, and seeming unusually tired. More symptoms will emerge in early childhood that will remain fairly constant throughout the entire life. The most classic sign for this disorder is hyperphagia, which is the constant craving for food, and this typically manifests starting at around 2 years of age and can result in sudden weight gain. Behaviors such as food hoarding and consumption of extremely unusual foods like frozen food and even garbage may also present with hyperphagia. A major challenge for individuals with Prader-Willis is nutrition. During infancy, poor suckling reflex can make it extra difficult with babies with PWS to get proper nutrition. Later on, starting in early childhood, a combination of factors makes these individuals predisposed to obesity as well. Lower than average muscle mass and constant hunger make those with PWS especially prone to obesity and its related complications, including type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, heart disease, sleep apnea, and a host of other comorbidities associated with being severely overweight. The most important enabling risk factor to consider with this population is that the majority of individuals also have an intellectual disability, which can majorly impact the level of self-care that they can provide, which makes it that much more difficult to manage the symptoms of PWS effectively and independently. Often, these individuals experience behavioral problems related to their intellectual disability during childhood and as adults, and can be extremely resistant to having their caloric intake restricted. PWS is actually the most common genetic cause of life-threatening obesity. Guidance from a dietitian is extremely helpful, but often these individuals will need constant, strict supervision when it comes to their eating habits. And while this is a challenging task during childhood, this can become an even more of a struggle as the individual reaches adulthood. The vast majority of individuals with PWS will require specialized care and around-the-clock supervision throughout their entire lives. Ideally, adults would live in residential care facilities that can help them manage their condition. But this can be extremely expensive and isn't feasible for a lot of families to sustain, especially for such a long term. The average cost of an adult daycare program for private payers is $15,250 per year based on 5 days a week for 50 weeks. Institutional care is even more expensive, coming in at roughly $77,000 per year. Although people with this condition really need this kind of care in order to control their symptoms, it's not often accessible to them because of the financial burden. Another concept that's important to consider when thinking about how to improve health outcomes for this population is how to maintain the autonomy of the individual while still providing high-quality care. Caregivers for those with any form of intellectual disability are faced with this dilemma on a daily basis. This is especially true when it comes to preventing obesity for those with Prader-Willi syndrome, particularly when it comes to adults. The unfortunate truth is that the primary needs of those with PWS is careful supervision of food intake, but often this can dramatically infringe on the independence of these individuals. A major priority when helping those with any kind of intellectual disability is to promote self-determination and to support them in achieving a normal role in society. Now, here are 2 discussion questions to get you thinking further about this population's vulnerability. Considering the importance of supporting self-determination for those with disabilities, how should caregivers go about ensuring autonomy while still maintaining high-quality care? Individuals with PWS are a very small subset of the general population, but they are also part of a much larger group who suffer because of the astronomical costs of long-term care. What should we do to improve the accessibility of long-term care for those who don't qualify for Medicare and Medicaid?